Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. I'm Mike King. I lead sales and customer success here at iTmethods, and I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, where we'll be discussing how TIAA is successfully running Cloudbees as SaaS on the iTmethods DevOps platform. A couple of quick housekeeping items before we get started. During the webinar, you can submit questions by using the Q&A box in the center of the toolbar, and we'll try our best to get to all the questions during the panel discussion. Here's a breakdown of today's agenda. We'll be looking at the 5 common DevOps toolchain challenges facing enterprises today. Then we'll take a look at running Cloudbees as SaaS on our managed DevOps platform. And then we'll lead into our expert panel discussion with TIAA. Be sure to stick around till the end of the webinar, where we'll let you know how you can qualify for an Amazon gift card. Joining me on the webinar today is our expert panel. I'd like to welcome Phai Wan, the CTO of iTmethods, who will moderate the panel portion of this discussion. And we're very lucky to have Aaron Pierce, head of DevOps engineering and operations at TIAA, joining us today to share his experiences from a customer perspective. I'd also like to introduce Sheng Xin, Director of Solution Architects at Cloudbees. And rounding out the panel, we have Welly Xiao, Senior Alliance Technical Lead at Amazon Web Services. It's hard to believe that it's been more than a decade since Marc Andreessen made the case that software is eating the world and that every company is a software company. Looking back on those quotes, I'd say that they've stood the test of time quite well. In fact, they're probably as relevant today as when he first made them. And the reason I bring this up is because before we get into how enterprises run tools like Cloudbees as SaaS, I think it helps to understand why enterprises need to run tools like Cloudbees and why they should be running them as SaaS. So what does it mean that software is eating the world and every company is a software company? Well, to me, it means that companies who are able to embrace digital transformation and modernize themselves into effective software companies are really the ones who end up being able to respond most quickly to their customers' evolving demands. And we see it's those companies who end up thriving. And as history has shown us, those who can't simply get disrupted. And it really doesn't matter how big or established they are. You can take Sears as an example. 10 years ago in 2012, they were riding pretty high in the middle of the Fortune 100, right in the middle. And Tesla, on the other hand, wasn't even on the Fortune 500. And we all know Tesla, the car manufacturer, is also at heart a software company. Sears, on the other hand, they weren't. They were a legacy retailer, unable to keep up with the disruption in their industry, and went bankrupt before the end of the decade. And in fact, in the 10 years since Marc famously made those quotes, close to 50% of the Fortune 100 companies have actually lost their place on that list. So when it comes to DevOps transformation, one key aspect is the tooling. And there's a couple of ways to look at the tooling. There are the actual tools that the software teams choose to use, and you can see some of them here. And then there are the ways that those tools are deployed, modernized, and maintained in the cloud. And today we're going to drill down into how enterprises can migrate and manage their DevOps tools in the cloud. And we're going to focus this webinar on Cloudbees, but what we're discussing today could really be applied to any of the tools in your DevOps toolchain. A little bit about us. At iTmethods, we have a fully managed DevOps SaaS platform that allows organizations to modernize and manage their multi-vendor DevOps tools on AWS. This allows our clients to focus on building better software faster and more securely to enhance their digital transformation and thereby enhance their competitiveness in the market. We talk to a lot of customers around the globe, and we started to notice common themes amongst the challenges that many of these companies face. As I walk through the top 5 challenges that we see from customers, I think you will probably relate to many, if not all of them. So the first challenge that we hear from customers is the desire to focus their limited resources on business priorities. And it's no surprise because it's a great challenge today for organizations to attract and retain top technical talent. So this challenge is really about a company's desire to maximize the benefit they get out of the resources they have. So rather than have their resources focus on things like learning how to deploy or migrate and manage a set of tools, they'd rather have those resources focus on things that differentiate them from the competition, things that delight their customers and drive their bottom line. So if they're a bank, this could mean deploying the next great new banking product, or maybe improving the customer experience. If they're a software gaming company, that might mean getting a new release to market faster, or figuring out a way to monetize a particular feature within a game. They don't want their valuable resources focused on things that don't differentiate them from the competition, which would be things like upgrading to the latest version of a particular tool, or ensuring that the patching is up to date, or monitoring performance and availability to ensure that teams aren't impacted. The second challenge that we hear from customers is around software currency. That's the ability to keep tools at the current version, and it's a major challenge for many organizations. It creates problems in many areas. Developer community is not happy because they want their bug fixes, they want their new features. A lot of organizations, we find, let things fall so far behind that the version they're running isn't even supported by the software vendor. And of course, the further you fall behind, the more difficult it is to catch up. So instead of a series of small, regular, non-impacting upgrades, they've stacked them up, and they have these massive upgrades projects that they have to deal with. And it's always at the cost of other priorities. So the last thing I'll say about software currency is the further you fall behind, the more exposed you are from a security standpoint. And that ties in nicely to the next challenge, which is challenge number 3 that we hear: operating securely in the cloud. So the companies we talk to know that they need to get to the cloud because they want the availability and the scalability that they can get there. But what they lack internally is the experience and the expertise, not only to initially deploy and migrate to the cloud, but also to manage and run on an ongoing basis. And perhaps the most important concern that companies have is security, and rightfully so. You only need to look at the recent headlines, a lot of them, to understand the risks that companies face today if they don't properly prioritize security. So it's no surprise that Gartner's recent CIO staffing survey found that 74% of CIOs plan to increase security operations staffing over the next year. And that was actually the #1 category out of 20 that they were surveyed on. Another challenge we come across is functional expertise gaps. So with tools and employees changing all the time, many companies we talk to just don't have the depth of experience in particular tools that they rely on. And the last challenge that we'll touch on today is challenge number 5, the ability to execute quickly. A lot of companies are behind schedule. They're being pushed to do more with less. And they also have a lot of internal process that they're tied up with, involved with onboarding new vendors. So these are the 5 challenges that we've heard from customers. So now that you understand the challenges faced by our customers and the challenges that you are possibly facing, let's take a look at Cloudbees running on the iTmethods DevOps SaaS platform to see how it addresses some of those challenges. And I'll start by walking through some of the key components on this slide. If you look in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, just waiting for the slide to catch up, we have your current environment. This may be entirely on-prem today, but it probably also includes some SaaS applications that you're running, along with different public cloud environments that you may be leveraging. In the center graphic, we have Cloudbees running on the iTmethods DevOps SaaS platform powered by AWS. So how does this address security, privacy, and governance concerns? What you're seeing here has been deployed to the best practice standards of both Cloudbees and AWS. This includes deploying it in the most modern way, leveraging cloud-native services where possible to improve performance and availability. It's deployed as a dedicated single-tenant instance in accordance with each customer's internal controls. For example, if the customer has a particular encryption algorithm or wants to bring their own key to our platform, this is all part of the service that we offer. And if there was a migration that was required to bring us to the state where a customer is running Cloudbees on our platform, that would have been performed by our certified consultants in adherence with our migration practices. And if a customer has certain privacy legislation to comply with, or they need to reside in a particular geography, customers on our platform have a choice of running in any one of the 25 global AWS regions that we support. And lastly, this is being run by iTmethods as a SOC 2 Type 2 compliant platform. In terms of allowing organizations to focus their limited resources on business priorities, which was another key challenge that we heard, well, for customers that run our platform, the division of responsibilities roughly breaks down like this. iTmethods, we look after everything related to the infrastructure and the system administration of the tool. This frees up customer resources to focus on actually using the tool from a functional standpoint and focusing on their business priorities. For example, we've got 7x24x365 monitoring and support. We have guaranteed availability through committed SLAs, all the backups, patching, infrastructure sizing, integrations. That's all part of the platform subscription. So these are all things that a customer doesn't need to focus on, doesn't need to have their resources focused on. We also have transit and access hub layers that act as a single secure connection point to a customer's infrastructure. So once that's in place, access to and consumption of Cloudbees on our platform is pretty seamless to the end user. It's really as if iTmethods DevOps SaaS platform becomes an extension of their own environment. So when it comes to software currency, another challenge that we heard from customers, all customers running on our platform are kept current. And we do this through a series of regular upgrades and patching that are included as part of the subscription. That includes weekly patching at the operating system level, as well as application level patches, whether they're security or functional, and then full application upgrades as well to keep customers current. The next challenge that we addressed, functional expertise gaps. We do have a functional consulting practice with resources who are certified in some of the 45 plus tools that we offer on our platform. And we also partner with tool vendors such as Cloudbees to offer professional services consulting. And that can serve to establish guidelines and best practices around tool usage, or it can fill resourcing gaps as well. And the last challenge that I touched on that we're able to assist with is a customer's desire to move quickly. So we are able to help remove a lot of barriers. Initially, it's usually related to the governance and vendor onboarding, and we have a lot of experience in this area. We understand what large regulated enterprises need to see. And when customers choose the iTmethods DevOps SaaS platform, that also removes a lot of internal bottlenecks around cloud infrastructure and governance, because they're really relying on us as a SaaS provider to provide all of those controls. And that isn't to say that these groups aren't part of the initial assessment process. They definitely are. But once the platform is approved and the project kicks off, and those dependencies are removed. And then once a customer is on our platform, expanding to additional tools is relatively easy, because all of the additional tools that are added will leverage all of that hard work that was done up front, and they will all connect through the same transit hub and access hub infrastructure. So I hope you've seen the advantages of running a set of tools such as Cloudbees or any of the other 45 plus tools that we support on the iTmethods DevOps SaaS platform. I'm going to now hand things over to Phi Wan, who will facilitate the panel discussion.
Great, thanks, Mike. And welcome to all of our attendees online. And we had a bit of a hiccup earlier, but glad to see all that sorted out. That's one of the issues with live webinars, but we're all back online right now. And yeah, I want to take the opportunity to welcome our guests as well. So from AWS or Amazon Web Services, and I don't think we need to introduce who Amazon is as the leading global cloud provider. We have Welly Xiao, who is our Senior Alliance Technical Lead. He will represent AWS on this call. And coming from Cloudbees, we have Sheng Xin. He is the Director of Solution Architects. Some of you may be new to Cloudbees, so I want to give the opportunity to Sheng right now. Just give us a brief introduction to Cloudbees, some of the products and solutions that you offer in the software delivery space.
Yeah, absolutely. And what Cloudbees is, really we are a DevOps company, really focusing on helping our customers move faster. I really love Mike's analogy of the Sears and companies that are no longer running a very profitable business because they weren't able to keep up with the software, right? So you look at a Netflix, for example. I still remember back in the days with Blockbuster, right? Netflix kind of took that over. So certainly being able to have a quicker time to market, that really is our goal, right? Now, to have our customers move faster, there's also two other things, our main themes that we need to be very concerned about, right? One is also around security, building that in a safer manner. And then the third one, I think, that really helps is automation at scale, right? So if you look at those three themes for Cloudbees from a DevOps platform, that's what we're trying to do with our continuous integration and continuous delivery and these solutions that we're trying to offer. So again, moving faster, quicker time to market for our customers, building it safer with security in mind. And then third, automation at scale, right? As we know, Jenkins, as you start to have a lot of these Jenkins instances, there's tend to be some issues there. So being able to do that at a team level and being able to have a manageable and building an efficient operational process. And this is frankly where iTmethods is going to really help our customers as well, right? Because they're going to have a managed service platform that you no longer have to kind of learn everything from scratch. They're the experts at it, and they'll be able to share a lot of that experience with you. So Cloudbees, again, is that we're a proven vendor that can help your customers scale in an enterprise manner.
Great, thanks, Sheng, and we'll come back to you in a little bit to dive a little bit deeper into Cloudbees CI, or continuous integration with Cloudbees enterprise deployment of Jenkins. Last but not least, we have Aaron Pierce, who is the head of DevOps engineering and operations. And before we get into some of the specific questions, Aaron, maybe if you can give us a little background about TIAA and the company.
Yeah, thanks, Vine, and thanks for having me here today. TIAA was founded by Andrew Carnegie over 100 years ago. We're a Fortune 100 company. We have over 1.2 trillion in assets. And I think what's unique about TIAA is that we're a privately held company, but we're very mission driven. Our mission has always been to help those who help others. So our main customers are colleges, universities, medical institutions. And of course, our participants are the doctors and teachers and professors. We're well known in the industry for our Naveen asset management line of business. We're also very competitive in the technology space. We've won a CIO award for 4 years in a row for some of our retirement systems. And we're consistently in the top 3 financial institutions for best performing website in the Dalbar rating. So we're an old company, but we like to think that we know our way around technology as well.
Great, thanks, Aaron. What does TIAA stand for again, the long name?
Oh, Teachers Insurance and Annuities.
Great. I have a hard time remembering that. It's a little bit long for me. I know we were chatting before the webinar, and I thought it was only 3 years ago that I first met you, but it's actually been over 4 years. And time has really gone by really quickly, over the last couple of years. But it's great to know you for that number of years. And if we were to think back just maybe 2-3 years ago and some of the challenges that you were having with respect to maybe technology or business, which kind of prompted you to move to iTmethods or look at iTmethods in terms of running your software development tools. So it'd be great if you can share some of those challenges, business or technical challenges, with the audience today.
Yeah, thanks. we had some of those classic problems that you hear about, but they're all very real to us. We were running on a combination of physical VMs or physical servers and VMs, and had a number of the end-of-life operating system issues you've heard of, middleware challenges, just a very heterogeneous technology stack from the physical up to the middleware and the databases. Even the systems themselves were multiple versions behind. And as you've probably heard out there many times, our engineers were just too busy, keeping the systems up and running. So we weren't forward looking. We weren't even taking advantage of the existing capabilities of our technology stack, including the Cloudbees stack. So we just couldn't we're just busy with the day-to-day upkeep of the ecosystem. So we partnered with iTmethods. We got two things immediately. First and foremost, an enormous lift in our infrastructure and scalability, and just took a heavy burden off our engineers. And secondly, the partnership actually instilled another level of discipline for us. When you're paying green dollars for multiple upgrades a year and multiple enhancements, you have a tendency to do those upgrades and take advantage of those enhancements. So it's been a fantastic forcing factor for us. Now our engineers are actually able to expand upon the capabilities and drive some of the DevSecOps practices into our development teams like we've always wanted to. So now we're really driving the change versus being a victim of the change.
Great, thanks, Aaron. And yeah, a lot of similar challenges that we see with customers today as well. And a lot of times developers or engineers are spending time keeping the lights on, as you mentioned, right? And they're not driving value with respect to the business and driving outcomes. Maybe if you could dive into a little bit more detail around how iTmethods help to address some of these concerns.
Oh yeah, so we also subscribe to iTmethods professional services. So helped a lot in terms of getting some of the native databases set up with the platform. So like I referenced before, we had some I'd say not perfectly aligned infrastructure to the systems that we have hosted. I think it's probably important to mention that we have multiple applications hosted with iTmethods in addition to Cloudbees, our code repo, our binary repo, some of our scanning tools, etc. So your professional services really helped us with a better design in terms of scalability and also aligning the infrastructure better to the technology that we're using.
Great, thanks, Aaron. And I think we onboarded you just over 2 years ago with moving multiple best-in-class tools, as you mentioned, some already. Part of that migration, application migration, was one thing, specifically in today's webinar, moving Cloudbees. But we also helped you from not just migration of the application, but a bit of a modernization of the application. So we moving from CJP, for those of you who are familiar with some of the Cloudbees Jenkins terms, CJP or Cloudbees Jenkins platform to CBCI or Cloudbees continuous integration. And with that modernization, aside from just adopting cloud, it was also a move from an infrastructure perspective from on-premise to Kubernetes, as we deploy all of our Cloudbees CI deployments within Kubernetes. And maybe I'd like to just switch over to Sheng at this point. And can you share with us some of the benefits of CBCI modern versus maybe some traditional deployments of CBCI or CJP, which Aaron was running previously to the migration?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I kind of tie to my previous discussion about time to market and that simplifying of ease of use, right? So from a management standpoint of the tool, certainly the user experience and the the intuitive access to the user experience is going to be top of mind for us, right? So being able to do CLI and YAML integration, pipeline enhancements, et cetera, these are all key features of CBCI. Self-service, right? I think Mike mentioned earlier, we're always being asked to do a lot more with less, unfortunately. So the way to do that is to have a tool, a better tool, right? So hopefully with the CBCI tool, gives you that a little bit better scalability as well as the visibility into the pipeline and the enhancements of those pipelines, right? And then secondly, I also want to go back to my second point around security and compliance, being able to tie into RBAC, role-based access control, being able to have limited agents, right, and have permissions and pipeline templates. These are all additional features on top of your traditional Jenkins tool. And of course, last but not least, the biggest differentiator is our leverage of the Kubernetes container and the modern apps type of scale. And this is where we tie into not just on-prem Kubernetes, but in the TIAA case study here, also into the Amazon EKS infrastructure as well, right? So being able to do that both across on-prem, into the hybrid cloud, into Amazon, auto scale up and down as needed, right? As demand, as you see fit, that elasticity at the cluster level, that's going to be really huge, right? Being able to do that for your application. So for example, Black Friday on Thanksgiving, maybe a lot of people are checking their retirement accounts and making sure that their money is there. And typically that's when the markets are very volatile. So we may need a little bit more demand, so it'll auto scale up when the demand is there. But maybe during spring break, everyone is on vacation. They're not checking their stock brokerage account as much. Maybe then we scale down a little bit, right? So that auto demand scalability at the cluster level, as in combination with your infrastructure, right, at the Amazon EKS and the ECS level, those are certainly going to be very critical for your application and the elasticity of the application as well.
Great, thanks, Jen. So if I could just summarize a few of your points. Self-service from a developer perspective, giving developers the ability to do what they need to do, right, to get their day jobs done. But you're doing that with certain controls and security and parameters, right? And a lot of times when we talk to customers, we usually go into environments where there's islands or pockets of DevOps where you've got multiple Jenkins systems running all over the place, and there's no control over these, masters or controllers, the new term right now. But bringing all that into CBCI, you've got, the ability to manage all of these controllers from a central location and enforce security and compliance across these controllers, still giving the developers the ability to do what they need to do, but within a framework that meets the enterprise compliance and governance requirements. Lastly, you mentioned scale and being able to scale up and scale down and having dynamic or ephemeral agents where I can run my builds and then tear down that agent and reduce costs. Like that's really big. And it's something that, you can really only do within cloud, right? DevOps really necessitates the need for cloud. And that's why we have Welly here from AWS. And I just, want you to touch on the benefits of EKS, since Cloudbees CI, runs and operates on a Kubernetes environment. So what is EKS and how do we leverage that, and what are the benefits of running EKS versus build your own cluster?
Yeah, thanks, Wai. Like whenever I hear about EKS and Kubernetes, EKS, of course, is the Elastic Kubernetes Service, a managed service offering by AWS. But coming back to maybe almost a couple years back when I first started using Kubernetes, it took me a couple hours, if not at least a whole day, just to set up a Kubernetes clusters, etcds, kube proxies, and then you put everything else on top of it, and then you have to auto scale it, like you mentioned. before you get it to productions ready. What we hear a lot from the customers is that they like Kubernetes because, of course, it's a very vibrant ecosystem. You have a lot of tools, you have communities in open source as well, and give you that flexibility of bringing your platform to the cloud. But coming back to what I mentioned earlier, managing that Kubernetes itself at scale typically is very hard. You have to run the cluster in productions, you have to run the patches, making sure it stay available. You want to secure it as well. You want to do, making sure you harden your Kubernetes clusters, and then coming back to day-to operations, maybe that's going to be making sure you're choosing the right versions of Kubernetes and etc. So there's a lot of that operational, operational overhead to do that, right? And then all of this really coming back to your point is that really don't move the business forward. This typically is not your primary core business, right? You're probably doing something for your customers, but you just need this platform to run. This is where I think a lot of Kubernetes customers in AWS likes to rely on EKS because it's really help you to remove this undifferentiated heavy lifting of running operationally secure Kubernetes at scale. What is Kubernetes? EKS Kubernetes itself is there's a couple things that we do that really highlights the feature and functionality of the EKS. So the first thing is that EKS itself does not modify the OpenShift Kubernetes. So it's fully upstream certified as well. We even backport some of the security patches to ensure like everybody in the community get the benefit of it. And we also support multiple versions of that upstream versions for a longer period of time. I believe there's 4 versions of major Kubernetes that is supported, and that gives you as a customers sufficient time if you need to do migration from one version to the other as well. And all of these security patches is also backported to those versions, which helps you, ensuring that you stay secure, even though maybe you are 1 or 2 versions behind of the latest release, for example. And EKS provides that managed Kubernetes experience. So it's providing you to, you don't have to choose the right version of Kubernetes version, for example. You don't have to, define what is that dependency validation looks like, stability of the control plans. We automatically deploy it across 3 availability zones, which mean like almost like 3 data centers, you can think about it. And the control plane itself is automatically auto scale for you. So really, I think the summary of the benefit is that it's EKS bring this combine of like a EKS as a managed service. And then if you run a managed solutions on top of it, it really helps you as a customers really focus on the business and deliver results and not to worry about the infrastructure itself.
Great, thanks, Wally. And for those who are new to Kubernetes, like all of that would have been probably Greek. And it just speaks to the complexity of these infrastructure components that are real requirements that you need to run your systems, right? And do you want to spend time running and managing that when that's really not your primary focus, or it doesn't bring value to your business? And layering on top of the managed EKS is running the actual application. So coming back to Cloudbees CI, running that on top of EKS is another added benefit. So then it's really self-service. I consume the application as opposed to now having to manage and update the application, which is something that iTmethods would do on your behalf. When we look at EKS, it is complex, especially as you look at then integrating that with other systems or other services within AWS, or even looking at integrating it to on-premise, like we have with Aaron here at TIAA. We have a hybrid environment where we're still consuming services within their private data centers. And then layering on top of that, data governance or security or privacy, like it becomes very complex very quickly. And there's lots of potential challenges or hesitancies in moving to the cloud. And some of the challenges Aaron had mentioned earlier, and it's 2022 right now. Cloud's not new. But as much as it's been widely adopted, there are still companies that are hesitant to move into the cloud with good reason. All right, every business is different. Maybe, well, if you can speak briefly to how Amazon would help alleviate some of that hesitancy, especially in using a managed service provider like iTmethods.
Yeah, hi. I think that's really still a valid concern from a lot of the customers, wanting to move to the clouds. And typically when we hear this from the customers, the challenges is actually, interestingly, is not about the technology or the technical part, right? You guys proving it by running and moving TIAA into the clouds and do it securely. So what we hear and we see from the customers and organizations that securely and successfully move to the clouds, typically the challenge is actually on the people and the culture. And then from that perspective, I think what's the key success for them is really have to be having like a leadership sponsorship, essentially, in terms like a driving from the top downs, of having the senior leaderships that fully aligned and committed to set a clear directions and how I want to do that. And leadership also has to enable the organizations, coming back to this people and culture, in terms like get them trained and be comfortable to operate in the cloud. AWS trained hundreds of thousands of people and customers every day. And then that's including, for example, veterans, students. We also have with the startup examples. And that's also in conjunctions with working with a lot of the AWS partners. So I really want to kind of bring home that, in my perspective, the managed service providers such as iTmethods are also very instrumental in here, because they can help to accelerate the journey for the customers to move to cloud. You guys can bring that industry experts combined with the expertise in the cloud to help the organization to kickstart the move to the cloud. And along the way, it also kind of helps the organizations learn more about the clouds and get more comfortable with the cloud as well. And the last call I think I want to make out is that a lot of times we see that organizations get to this like analysis paralysis. They try to boil the oceans. Really, I think everybody should kind of think about what is that short-term and long-term plans, execute your short-term plans, and then along the way you might find a lot of these cloud benefits start to realize on your short terms, and that will change the horizon for you for your long-term plan as well.
Great, thanks, Welly. Yeah, and we've seen this a lot as an AWS MSP. A lot of our customers that we've helped to migrate to AWS Cloud have started to really embrace cloud, not just in the workloads that we run for them, but other workloads that they have, and they've started to reap those benefits of being in the cloud. And speaking about benefits, and I just want to bring it back to Aaron here. I know we've talked about some of the solutions and some of the things that iTmethods has helped you to overcome with respect to challenges. Over the past 2 years, have you seen any other benefits that you maybe were not anticipating coming into the partnership with us?
Yeah, thanks. There was a couple of really unforeseen benefits. The first one just came in Q4 of, actually the second one came in Q4 of last year that kind of the entire industry had to deal with when we had to deal with the Log4j vulnerability that virtually everyone had to deal with in a way, shape, or form. So of course we have many internal applications and external applications and vendor applications. And our job is to make sure that everything we had was upgraded in a very short period of time. And having been a partner with iTmethods and Cloudbees, it was really unforeseen, but iTmethods really took the forefront of determining what had to be done for Log4j for the application that we have hosted with iTmethods, and really did the communication with the various partners. And it really took a big piece of work off our plate, knowing that iTmethods had that piece and we could focus on other things at the same time. So huge help for us there. But also interesting, unforeseen benefit was the other internal organizations that want to take advantage of this partnership we have with Cloudbees and iTmethods. So we have already one other line of business that's taking advantage of our arrangement in terms of hosting their application out there as well. And we actually have two other lines of business that are very interested in taking advantage of this. So there's really no greater compliment than an internal organization wanting to take advantage of a partnership you've developed and cultivated. So I thank you for that. And it was completely unexpected.
Great, thanks, Aaron. Yeah, and that Log4j issue kind of threw the whole industry for a bit of a whirl at the end of last year, right before the holidays. And yeah, I'm glad that we were able to nip that in the bud for you guys, not just across Cloudbees CI, but across all the tools that we run for you, so that you guys can focus on some of the other internal applications and making sure those were secure. And it's great to be working with other business units within TIAA as well. And just wrapping up this formal part of the webinar, I just want to ask Sheng, iTmethods is a Cloudbees Summit level MSP partner, and what are some of the benefits that your customers have seen when working with partners such as iTmethods?
Yeah, I think Aaron brought up a really good example around vulnerabilities and patching. There's a lot of just kind of maintenance and upgrade activities that we take for granted, right? That it's all operational, and once we really get into it, there's a lot of hours spent by the administrators on those, right, that we take for granted. And this is where, again, running in the cloud with Amazon, they've got the server instances already built. Willie was talking about setting up the Kubernetes cluster. You can just create a Kubernetes cluster with X number of instances. It's such a, like in seconds, right? And now, but before it was like, oh yeah, it would take at least half a day to a day. And that's not even counting the racking and the wiring and the cabling and the storage, the networking. I mean, there's so much that we take for granted on top of the infrastructure, and then you run the application inside the infrastructure and the configurations. So I can go on and on. Everyone knows this, right? So I think the biggest advantage for our customers is that operational efficiency, and really have that ease of that level of mind where they're really secured and safe, and being trustful and trustworthy, trusting in the managed service provider that iTmethods provide. Right? So I think that's the biggest benefit. Any additional benefits, like really looking at business continuity, backups, and application refactoring, migration planning, right? There's so many different professional services that iTmethods can assist as well. As we know, TIAA is not in the business of hosting Jenkins installation and infrastructure in general. So being able to have the advice and the expertise of iTmethods and that they bring into the project, that really really help all of our customers in giving that best practice.
Great, thanks, Sheng. I'm just scanning through some of the Q&A questions, and I think we've addressed most of them. There are a few that maybe I'll just address right now in terms of how does TIAA consume the services that we offer, and it's 100% private. So even though it's running in a public cloud, it's completely private and consumed by internal resources. So it's not open to the internet. So for those of you who are thinking public is public, it's really not. It's private. And maybe a question I'll throw out to you, Aaron. the build versus buy decision, you know, what were some of the things you thought about when considering whether you would build this yourself or look to iTmethods to run it for you?
I think build versus buy is very dependent on where you are in your journey as a firm or organization. So for us, the use of open source is very important for a number of reasons. One, it helps us explore some of the cutting edge work happening out there and letting us be a part of the technology community. It's also great for our developers and our workforce to have that ability to, you know, explore and experiment. But there's some areas where it just doesn't make business sense to build, and this is one of those areas. I mean, we had it built and we weren't happy with it. So in this particular area, the area of managing infrastructure, 7 by 365 by 24, it just made sense for us to buy this. We personally consider that more of a commodity than some of the development and engineering. So we're very happy to purchase those services from iTmethods.
Great, thanks, Aaron. And yeah, just coming back to what you've mentioned before and what Sheng was saying as well, is that operational cadence or operational hygiene that's so important, that oftentimes is overlooked, but it does consume quite a bit of time of your resources to maintain that cadence in a way that's going to be compliant to your own policies, right? Last question, I think it's going to go to Mike, and we'll hand it back to him for the call to action. But one of the questions is, what regions do you run in, Mike? So maybe I'll turn the time back over to you.
Yeah, so thanks, Ryan. Thanks, everyone. That was really enjoyable to watch. So in terms of regions, we can run in any one of the 25 and growing AWS regions. So that's completely flexible. And if that was the last question, I guess we could just move on to the wrap-up slide. But I'd like to thank, that's the end of the webinar. So I'd like to thank everyone for joining today. For further information, you can visit our website or our social media channels that are listed here. And lastly, we did mention that we're offering a chance to win a $100 Amazon gift card. So to be eligible for this, you just need to schedule an in-depth follow-up discussion with us. You can email us at innovate@iTmethods.com and be eligible for that. And we will be sharing a recording of this webinar soon for everyone who attended. So thanks again for joining, and have a great day.